No one walks into your life just to carry part of your burden. No one gives up their time, energy, and opportunities solely to solve the problems you're holding on to. This world does not operate on pity, it runs on power and value. People only show up when you are something they need, or something they fear. If you simply sit and wait, hoping for a hand to pull you up, you have already handed over the right to decide your fate to someone else. And when the power is in their hands, you are no longer a player, you are just a pawn. The beautiful stories about someone eventually recognizing you exist only in novels and empty promises. In real life, if someone truly wanted to help, they would have done it long ago without you waiting or begging. If they are still silent by now, take it as the clearest answer. The problem is not that you've been abandoned, but that you were never part of their plan. This truth may sound cold, but it's exactly what sets you free. Once you stop believing in the illusion of rescue, you no longer live in a state of waiting. You begin to see another path, a path where you hold full control. When you stop waiting, you realize the time you burned on vague hopes is exactly what delayed your growth. Every day spent waiting for a phone call, for recognition, or for a heaven-sent opportunity is another day you let someone else set the pace of your life. And this delay is never harmless. It weakens you, making you dependent on the emotions and decisions of people who have no responsibility for your life. The brutal truth is that no one cares as much as you think, and that's exactly why you must act as if everything depends entirely on you. You want to stand up? Erase the thought that someone will see your potential and pull you out of the dark. Most people are wrestling with their own darkness. No one has the time to save you. They don't see you because they're too busy trying to be seen by someone else. They don't heal you because they haven't even stopped the bleeding from their own wounds. If you keep clinging to the hope that someone will give you validation, you will keep living in prolonged disappointment. The world does not reward quiet effort until it produces results. Your persistence, the discipline you maintain daily, will receive no applause until it turns into visible achievement. And when that achievement arrives, the irony is that you will no longer crave that recognition. By then, you will have outgrown the thirst for others' approval. You will have tasted the value of lifting yourself up without needing anyone's nod. Weakness doesn't lie in wanting support, it lies in expecting it as a certainty. Others can sense the invisible desperation in your voice, your eyes, and your hesitation. They know you're waiting for rescue, and that instantly lowers your value. People respect those who save themselves first, and they only partner with those who have already proven their independent strength. The silence of the world is not a tragedy, it's an opportunity. When you stop looking out for someone to arrive, you can shift all your energy from waiting to building. Instead of seeking watchful eyes, you use the time to sharpen your skills, to lay the foundation for a power that no one can deny. At that point, you are no longer searching for opportunity, you become the opportunity. You no longer ask to be given a chance, you create your own arena. You must learn to stop explaining your pain, to stop telling the story of being left behind. Every time you explain, you drain your energy and give others the power to interpret your story for you. Instead, let your final results speak for themselves. Make your silence a mystery that others have to figure out. Make those who once overlooked you feel the pressure simply because you are still standing stronger than ever without them. No one is coming to save you, and that is your advantage. Because when no one saves you, you owe nothing to anyone. No one has the right to control you by reminding you of what they've done for you. No one can belittle you with, "If it weren't for me." Everything you build belongs to you, fully yours to decide, and cannot be taken away by a single threat. This is the strongest foundation for personal power, power that does not depend on anyone's fleeting kindness. Etch this deeply into your mind. The silence around you is not a void for you to sit and lament it. It is space for you to focus on sharpening yourself. No one shows up at the right time. Good. You have more time to prepare, to set the stage, to become the version of yourself that, when you appear, everyone has no choice but to notice. This is no longer a journey of begging for rescue. It is the journey of building a force so strong that it will never need rescuing again. Once you understand and accept this brutal truth, you will no longer waste time waiting for a miracle. You will start acting as if you are the miracle. And when that moment comes, it won't be that you were saved, it will be that you saved yourself long ago. Every minute you spend waiting for someone to show up is a minute you give away control over your own destiny. When power lies outside your hands, you cannot steer the game. Shifting from waiting to building is the first turning point in reclaiming that power. No longer allowing your emotions to be led by someone else's silence, you begin channeling your energy into tangible actions, clear plans, and steps that no one but you can stop. Waiting often disguises itself as hope. You convince yourself that patience is a virtue, that the right moment will come. But if that time is not used to prepare, you are not being patient, you are procrastinating. The one who waits watches the clock. The one who builds studies the blueprint. This shift demands that you replace every question of when with what now. Power is restored the moment you abandon the illusion of a perfect time and take action in the present. You do not need validation to begin. If the absence of a nod causes you to stop, it means your driving force was never growth, it was approval. Every step you take when no one is watching is what truly shapes your inner strength. This is when silence becomes your ally. When there is no applause, every advance is fueled purely by will, and it is this will that forms the foundation of power no rejection can break. Building instead of waiting also means accepting the loss of what is meaningless. You will have to cut away relationships that exist only to pull you into cycles of pointless conversation. You will have to decline invitations that contribute nothing to your goals. This choice will have you labeled as cold, distant, even arrogant. But that doesn't matter, because their perception cannot lay your foundation. Every time you say no to something that does not serve your path, you are placing another brick in the architecture of your power. Power does not come from chasing every opportunity handed to you. It comes from choosing the game where you set the rules. To do that, you need discipline in selection. Not every invitation to collaborate is an opportunity. Not every project is worth your full commitment. The one who waits will cling to anything that appears. The one who builds will ask, "Does this bring me closer to my goal or pull me off course?" Power is reclaimed when you begin asking the right questions and eliminating roads that lead to dead ends. Shifting from waiting to building also requires a deep mental shift. Instead of hoping for a favorable environment, you create it. No ideal conditions. You construct them by redesigning your schedule, removing distractions, accumulating the necessary skills, and securing resources. Instead of waiting for someone to open the door, you build your own door and decide when it opens. This is not an overnight explosion, it is constant accumulation. You don't need to take massive action right away, but you must act consistently. Every new skill, every good habit, every high-quality connection is a link in the chain of power you are forging. The one who waits dreams of leaps. The one who builds understands that every breakthrough is the result of hundreds of small, precise steps. Once you place yourself in the position of a builder, you will see that other people's silence is no longer a threat. In the past, an unanswered message might have made you doubt yourself, a rejection might have stopped you. Now, those gaps are simply spaces for you to reinforce your plans. You no longer need to know what others think, because you are too busy turning yourself into a force that cannot be ignored. What matters is keeping your building process under strategic secrecy. Not every move needs to be announced. Not every small achievement needs to be shown off. When others cannot see what you are doing, they cannot sabotage, interfere, or set expectations. You create an advantage by letting results appear unexpectedly, and when that happens, all doubt turns into attention. Reclaiming power means you stop asking for permission to exist. You don't seek a place, you create one. You don't ask if you're worthy, you prove it through work, results, and what no one can deny. And most importantly, you no longer spend time waiting for things that could have been created by your own hands and mind. From today, whenever you catch yourself waiting for something or someone, turn that moment into your starting point. Instead of asking when, ask, what can I do right now to move closer? Every concrete answer pulls you out of the waiting zone and places you in the position of the architect of your own life. Once you adapt to this rhythm, you will see that no one coming to save you is no longer a reason for disappointment. It is the opportunity to save yourself, to build yourself, and to take back control. No power can be sustained for long without discipline and absolute focus. These are two forces that operate like hidden weapons, unassuming, quiet, yet sharp enough to change your position without making a sound. Discipline is not inspiration, and focus is not a fleeting spark of motivation. Both are states you maintain regardless of mood, environment, or whether others understand what you are doing. True focus is not just turning off phone notifications for a few hours or spending a day away from social media. It is an ongoing war against everything that tries to pull you off your path. It is the ability to keep your eyes locked on one target while the world throws hundreds of fake, urgent distractions your way. Focus is about removing, not adding. Every cut you make, dropping a bad habit, ending a useless relationship, eliminating a vague goal sharpens your blade. Discipline is what keeps you standing when inspiration has run dry. It is the habit of acting even when every voice in your head is screaming, "Take a break." Those without discipline only work when they feel like it. Those with discipline work because it needs to be done. Discipline doesn't ask, "Do I want to?" It only asks, "Will I do it or not?" And the consistent answer to that question creates a strength no outside factor can shake. To maintain discipline and focus, you must accept loneliness. Few people have the patience to understand why you turn down social invitations, reject short-term pleasures, or disappear for long stretches to work. They will call you cold, extreme, even obsessive. But while they are judging, you are accumulating what they don't have: the ability to keep moving when no one is watching, and the strength to stand firm when no one is cheering. Discipline is a weapon because it allows you to finish what most people quit halfway. When others grow tired, you keep going. When others look for excuses, you look for ways. Not because you are inherently stronger, but because you have trained yourself to endure discomfort longer than they can. This endurance makes you a threat opponents cannot predict, because they do not know your limits and you refuse to set them. Focus is a weapon because it directs all your energy toward a single point. Imagine a beam of light. On its own, it only illuminates. But when concentrated through a lens, it becomes a spark capable of igniting fire. When you channel all resources in one direction, results are no longer linear, they are exponential. This is why those who know how to focus always outpace the crowd, scattering their attention across 10 different things. The combination of discipline and focus creates a double effect. Discipline keeps you on track, focus accelerates every step. Someone with focus but without discipline will quit at the first sign of difficulty. Someone with discipline but without focus will spread their energy too thin and fail to break through in any area. Only when these two work together can you build strength that is both deep and lasting. Training discipline starts with small, non-negotiable actions. Set a wake-up time and follow it without fail. Schedule deep work hours and guard them like territory. Hold yourself to a standard higher than the one you expect from anyone else. These things are not glamorous, they receive no applause, but day by day, they shape you into something far harder to break. Training focus begins with identifying what truly deserves your full attention. A vague goal will never hold focus for long. You need a vision so clear you can picture it in detail even with your eyes closed. And once chosen, you cut away everything that doesn't serve it. This will cost you comfort and even certain relationships, but in return, you gain the speed and precision that those who do it all can never achieve. Discipline and focus are not meant for show. The quieter this power, the more effective it becomes. When others ask how you keep progressing, they expect a special trick. But the truth is, you simply do what they are unwilling to maintain long enough. The boredom of repeating the right actions every day without missing is what creates the real difference. Understand this. Discipline and focus are not just tools to achieve goals, they are part of your identity. When these two are embedded into how you live, you no longer need to force yourself to maintain them. You naturally choose the right action, even when no one is watching, rewarding, or acknowledging you. At that point, you possess a weapon most people cannot replicate. From today on, whenever you feel distracted or tempted to quit, ask yourself, does this bring me closer to or further from my vision? If the answer is further, cut it immediately. Every decision to remove distraction and keep taking consistent action sharpens the blade of your power. And when discipline and focus become reflex, you step into a space your competitors cannot reach, not because they lack intelligence, but because they lack the endurance to survive there. No invisible chain is heavier than dependence on someone else's nod of approval. Being addicted to recognition means you cannot move forward without praise, without the approving gaze, without some sign that they accept you. It drives you to adjust your behavior to please the crowd, distort the truth to avoid criticism, and abandon the right decisions simply out of fear of losing favor. It may sound harmless, but this is a form of psychological slavery, because the control over your emotions and direction has already been handed to someone else. Recognition is like a sweet but short-lived dose of dopamine. Each time you are praised, you feel valuable, but that feeling fades quickly, forcing you to seek the next dose. And like any addiction, the next dose has to be stronger than the last to have the same effect. By the time you realize it, your life has revolved entirely around maintaining a praiseworthy image instead of pursuing what you truly believe in. Breaking free begins with accepting a truth. You will never please everyone. Every decision you make will have both supporters and detractors. If you constantly adjust to satisfy all sides, the result is the loss of your identity. You become a diluted, forgettable, and easily replaceable version of yourself. At that point, even praise becomes nothing more than a reward for pretending, not for your real value. Freedom from the addiction to approval means learning to see applause as secondary, not your primary fuel. This does not mean becoming indifferent or arrogant. It simply means shifting the focus from "how do I make them like me" to "how do I stay true to my principles and goals." You stop seeking safety in someone else's smile and start finding it in meeting the standards you set for yourself. To do this, you must learn to live with the discomfort of being misunderstood, misjudged, or even disliked. Every time you withstand a wave of criticism without wavering, you reclaim a piece of the power you lost. This is a skill that must be intentionally trained, stepping into situations you know will draw opposition and standing firm within them. No debating to persuade, no rushing to explain, just holding your ground in what you believe. Over time, your internal resistance to external pressure becomes instinct. Those addicted to recognition often fear silence. They rush to fill the gap with justifications or point-scoring actions to prove they're still doing fine. But calculated silence is a tool of liberation. When you stop reacting instantly to every signal from others, you create space to evaluate whether their opinion has real value or is merely an emotional impulse. That space is the boundary that protects you from being controlled. Remember this: no one respects the person who constantly tries to please everyone. Real respect comes when you show that you have your own standards and are willing to risk being disliked to uphold them. This doesn't drive people away. In fact, it attracts those who genuinely share your values. Such relationships are more sustainable because they are not built on pretense. Breaking the addiction to recognition also means facing the emptiness within. Many seek praise because they feel hollow inside, and compliments act like a temporary coat of paint covering a rotting wall. When you stop chasing external validation, you will feel that emptiness more sharply. This stage is uncomfortable but necessary. Only by facing it can you begin to fill it with real value, skills, achievements, principles, and the self-confidence that comes from keeping promises to yourself. Once you free yourself from this dependency, you realize you are no longer easily manipulated. Others cannot control you with praise or criticism. You are not pulled into meaningless games just to prove yourself. You save the enormous energy you once spent tracking everyone's reactions and redirect it toward building what truly matters. Freedom from the need for approval does not mean rejecting all feedback. You still listen, but selectively. Opinions from those with expertise or experience you respect will be considered, while shallow, emotional reactions are dismissed without explanation. This selectivity transforms you from someone being led into someone steering their own course. When you no longer live to please, you begin to live to make an impact. Every action stems from a clear intention, not from the desire for immediate applause. What you produce carries weight because it is not diluted by the need to be liked. And this independence makes you formidable not because you seek to dominate, but because you are no longer an easy target. From this point on, you no longer need anyone's nod to feel enough. Every step you take bears the mark of self-sovereignty. Your silence is no longer an empty space waiting to be filled, but a declaration: I do not need to prove my worth through someone else's eyes. When you reach this stage, you have removed one of the strongest chains holding back personal power, and from there, every step forward is born from freedom, not permission. Silence is not emptiness, and disappearing is not giving up. When used correctly, they are two sharp tools that can completely change your position without a single argument or direct counterattack. Most people fear silence because they see it as a sign of loss. They fear disappearing because they think absence will make them forgotten. In reality, when you know how to control the timing and manner of your withdrawal, silence and disappearance become psychological levers stronger than any noisy action. Silence is powerful because it cuts off the supply of energy to those who want to provoke or control you. They wait for your reaction like an addict waits for a fix. Every explanation, every rebuttal, every emotional display is a drop of fuel feeding their power. When you stop reacting, you leave them in a state of deprivation, forcing them to face the void you have created. In that void, assumptions, worries, and doubts generate on their own, draining their energy instead of yours. Strategic disappearance operates on the principle of scarcity. People tend to undervalue what is always available and overvalue what is hard to access. When you are constantly present, your value in the eyes of others decreases not because you have diminished, but because they have become accustomed to having you. Withdrawing at the right time makes them aware of the gap you leave behind, and that gap becomes the strongest reminder of your value. The difference between strategic disappearance and retreating out of weakness lies in intention. Retreating out of weakness is running away from pressure. Strategic disappearance is pulling back to regroup, reinforce your position, and choose the timing of your next move. You do not disappear to be remembered, you disappear to reappear as an unpredictable variable. The goal is to make your presence an event, not a routine. The moment to go silent or disappear is when the other side is expecting your reaction the most. At that exact moment, your lack of response will have the strongest impact. Silence in the face of provocation is not passive endurance. It is a declaration that you refuse to be dragged down to their level. Disappearing when others believe they fully understand you forces them to realize they never truly reached you. However, silence and disappearance are only effective when you are quietly building during that time. If you withdraw just to stand still, the power fades. But if you disappear and devote that time to upgrading your skills, increasing your resources, and expanding your network, when you return, your transformation will force others to reassess you. At that point, you will not need to justify yourself because the truth will be evident in the results. The subtlety of this strategy is that you do not announce, explain, or try to shut down speculation. You let ambiguity do its work. Ambiguity forces others to spend their time and energy guessing, and when they are guessing, they are giving you a form of invisible power, the ability to occupy their mind even when you are not present. Silence is also a way to protect your secrets. Every time you speak, you give others information to analyze and exploit. Staying silent about your plans, your weaknesses, and your motives allows you to maintain control of the game. No one attacks what they cannot clearly see, and silence is the smoke that hides your true position. Strategic disappearance, when repeated at the right intervals, creates a rhythm that others must adjust to. They learn to guess when you will return, And every time they guess wrong, you reinforce your position as an unpredictable variable. Real power does not lie in being present all the time. It lies in choosing when and where to appear to maximize your impact. This is not for those who fear being disliked or misunderstood, because once you go silent and disappear, you will be labeled arrogant, distant, excessively mysterious. But if you understand how to use these labels, they become armor for your autonomy. When others cannot define you, they cannot easily manipulate you. From now on, observe your own reaction patterns. How many times have you responded just to fill the silence? How many times have you shown up simply because you feared being forgotten? Each time you do, you lower your own value. Instead, try withdrawing at the right moment and let silence do its work. When you return, let your transformation speak for itself. And when you disappear, let your absence become a gap no one else can fill. When you master the use of silence and strategic disappearance, you are no longer swept into the chaos of others' rhythms. You set your own rhythm, forcing everything around you to adjust to you. This is not just a communication technique, it is a refined form of power, the kind of power that makes your presence felt most strongly at the very moment you are not there. When you return after a phase of strategic disappearance, the goal is not to prove what you have been doing, but to make your presence an undeniable reality. You do not come back to apologize, to explain, or to seek approval. You return with a new standard higher, sharper, and strong enough to force your surroundings to adjust themselves. The untouchable form is not just about appearance. It stems from how you position yourself in every situation. In the past, you may have reacted to every remark, explained every misunderstanding, and tried to maintain an approachable image. Now, your selective silence and your refusal to rush into responses are a declaration. Your priority is not to please, but to protect the standard you have built. When you reappear, do not step in with the mindset of, "I have changed." Let every action, every interaction, and every result show it for you. People will notice the difference in your steadiness when facing challenges, in your ability to say no without justification, and in your absolute focus on your goals without being distracted by surrounding noise. This is the kind of strength that makes you difficult to grasp, because no one can predict how you will respond, and this unpredictability itself is an advantage. The core of becoming untouchable lies in severing all emotional pull strings. In the past, a disdainful glance, a sarcastic comment, or a damaging rumor could throw you off balance. Now, you do not let those signals reach you, not because you do not notice them, but because you understand that your reaction is an open door for others to breach your safe zone. You maintain the necessary distance, and within that distance, the control belongs to you. This shift will make some people uncomfortable. They were used to the version of you that was always ready to explain, always easy to draw into a conversation, always soft enough to keep the peace. When they realize you no longer operate on that old system, they will try to break your new defense with provocation or disregard. But when you hold your ground, they are forced to acknowledge that the power has shifted. The untouchable form is also reflected in how you allocate your presence. You do not show up everywhere, all the time, and certainly not in spaces that hold no value for you. Your appearances become so selective that each time you enter, it feels like an event. People pay attention not because you try to attract it, but because scarcity has turned you into the focal point. When you return, you also bring a different kind of energy, one that no longer fluctuates with external conditions. It is still but powerful, quiet, yet far-reaching. When you speak, every word is deliberate. When you are silent, that silence is not emptiness, but a space that prompts others to reflect on themselves. This is the kind of energy that turns you into a variable others want to approach, yet remain cautious of. It is crucial not to turn this reappearance into a performance. If you make it a moment of showmanship, you will lose the mystery you have built. The true strength of becoming untouchable lies in not seeking recognition, and because of that, you attract even more of it. Your independence from others' approval makes you the one who sets the standard, and that is something very few can shake. You must also accept that not everyone will welcome this change. Some will leave because they can no longer control you as before. Some will try to sabotage you to pull you back to your old self. But you no longer have the duty to keep them. Being untouchable is not about building high walls to isolate yourself, but about creating a natural filter that removes connections not strong enough to walk alongside you. When you return with sharpened precision and honed stillness, you send a clear message. I am not here to ask for permission. I am here to set my own rhythm. Everything you do from that moment reflects this, from the way you enter a room, to the way you choose who has access to you, to how you protect your time and energy. And when you maintain this state, you will realize you have shifted from a reactive stance to complete control. No one can touch you in a way that knocks you off balance. No one can define your worth by their standards. You are the sole decision-maker of when, where, and how others get to reach you. That is the most sustainable form of power you can carry into any battlefield. Personal power can earn you respect, but systemic power is what makes you irreplaceable. When everything revolves around one individual, it depends on that person's direct presence and effort. But when you turn your strength into a structure, a network, a set of operating principles that others must follow even when you are not there, you step into another tier of power, invisible power. Shifting from individual to system means you no longer seek influence through isolated actions. You begin to design the environment, lay the foundation, and set the principles that everyone must follow if they want to operate effectively. Instead of managing every detail, you create the framework so that every detail falls into place on its own. At this level, you don't need to be present all the time, because the very system you built will maintain your influence. What makes a system powerful is not just its structure, but its sustainability. A sound system will continue to function even when you temporarily step away. It doesn't require constant pushing. It sustains itself because it is designed logically and benefits those involved. Others may not see your hand in every movement, but every movement happens within the orbit you've created. To build invisible power, you need three elements: core principles, an operating mechanism, and the right people. Core principles are the unwritten laws that shape how every decision is made. The operating mechanism is the chain of processes, tools, and habits that ensure everyone knows what to do without your reminders. The right people are those who share your vision and are willing to protect this structure because they understand its value. Systemic power differs from personal power in that it does not depend on momentary emotions. When it relies on an individual, one tired day or one poor decision can weaken your entire influence. But when it relies on a system, temporary mistakes cannot disrupt the overall order. The system is the protective barrier that keeps your power from being shaken by short-term fluctuations. The subtlety of invisible power is that it does not need to be displayed. You do not need to appear to give orders because people already act within the framework you have set. You do not need to argue to prove you are right, because the system was built to filter out what does not fit from the start. At this level, your absence does not diminish your power. On the contrary, it strengthens your mystique and influence. Building a system does not mean detaching from reality. On the contrary, it demands sharp observation to identify weaknesses others overlook. You must see how relationships, resources, and information flows operate, then restructure them so that everything moves toward your intended goal. This is the work of a power architect, not just building the structure, but laying deep, solid foundations so it stands the test of time. When your system is strong enough, others will unconsciously maintain your power for you. They will act in the system's best interest because they see themselves benefiting from it. At this point, your influence no longer needs to be enforced from the top down, it spreads from within outward. This is when your power becomes hard to detect, yet present everywhere. Invisible power also protects you from direct attacks. When things are no longer tied solely to your personal image, opponents cannot simply target you to bring down the whole structure. They must confront a network in which every link is connected and self-protecting. This is the difference between a single lamp lighting one spot and an entire lighting system illuminating the space. Switching off one bulb does not plunge the whole room into darkness. Moving from individual to system requires letting go of the need for microcontrol and focusing on strategic vision. You no longer chase every small conflict, you focus on shaping the rules of the game so that all outcomes revolve around your advantage. When you achieve this, you are no longer just a participant, you are the one holding the map, and whoever holds the map truly directs where everyone goes. When you have built invisible power, you no longer need to shout to be heard. Your presence is felt in how everything runs smoothly according to your intent. And even if no one calls your name, your influence lives in every decision, every action of those walking the path you designed. That is when you understand that the most enduring power is not the kind everyone sees. It is the kind no one can escape. The highest form of power is not today's applause, but the ability for your influence to live on after you have left the stage. A strategic legacy does not lie in loud slogans or short-lived achievements, but in a system of thinking, principles, and structures strong enough to endure for generations. When power is contained within a single person, it dies with them. But when power is embedded into rules, standards, and self-sustaining mechanisms, it transcends time and becomes immortal. A strategic legacy does not need your name stamped on every accomplishment. It quietly exists in how people think, decide, and act along the trajectory you have set. True influence is not about being remembered as someone, but about the world continuing to operate in the direction you created even when no one mentions your name. This silence makes a legacy stronger because it does not need to be defended with words. It is sustained by its own inherent benefits and logic. To build an immortal legacy, you must first escape the trap of seeking immediate recognition. Those who obsess over carving their name into every wall will see their mark fade when a fresh coat of paint covers it. In contrast, those who carve the rules of the game into the foundation will see every future structure built upon it. This demands extreme patience and the ability to give up short-term glory in exchange for a slow-burning influence that cannot be erased. A strategic legacy is nourished by three pillars: ideas with lasting vitality, self-sustaining structures, and a succeeding generation. Long-lasting ideas are principles that transcend trends, independent of time or technology. Self-sustaining structures are systems intelligent enough to adapt to changing environments without losing their essence. A succeeding generation is not just a replacement, but individuals who have absorbed and continue refining the legacy so it fits the new context. The greatest danger to a legacy is for it to become a museum artifact admired, but no longer useful. To prevent this, you must build your legacy as a living mechanism, constantly functioning and self-renewing. The true strength of a strategy is its ability to regenerate while preserving its core values. Like a river, it can gently alter its course to avoid obstacles, yet still flow toward the ocean. Silence is a crucial weapon in protecting a legacy. When you loudly assert ownership, you create enemies eager to dismantle it. When you remain silent, you allow the legacy to merge so deeply into the fabric of society, culture, or an organization that no one can distinguish it from the system itself. A rule of the game becomes untouchable when people believe it is natural and self-evident, not imposed by an individual. The creator of a strategic legacy does not need to stand at the center. They remain in the background, observing and intervening only when necessary. Control no longer lies in issuing orders, but in ensuring that every change ultimately circles back to the intended trajectory. This is the highest form of power, power that needs no contest because no one realizes it exists to contest. Once a strategic legacy is established, it lives on in the actions and thinking of people who have never met you. An idea, a principle, a structure spreads across layers and generations without anyone knowing its origin. This is true immortality when you are gone, yet your imprint remains an inseparable part of the world. The difference between someone powerful and someone immortal is this: the powerful control the present, the immortal control the future. Present power can be taken away, but future power, if embedded into a system, will keep functioning without your protection. At that point, even in silence, You continue speaking through the language of the structures, principles, and standards you planted. The ultimate end of every power game is not to defeat anyone, but to create a reality where your rules are self-evident and upheld without debate. At that point, you no longer have to fight to exist because you have become part of the foundation. And the foundation, though unseen, is what keeps the entire structure standing. A strategic legacy does not require grand declarations. It requires time, consistency, and the ability to make your influence irreplaceable. When you achieve that, you do not just live in the present, you exist in the future of people who have never known your name. That is immortality in silence, the kind of power no force can destroy.